Hey everybody, how you guys doing today?
Hey, everybody.
So today we have a special guest, Rashad and Shahidah Bell,
Yep.
and they're going to talk to us about or talk with us about the power of vulnerability in relationships, specifically Black couples.
Hmm.
But before we get started, let us introduce ourselves. Welcome to Love Park Connection, where we talk about the pains and pleasures of life, love, and relationships. My name is Angela Parker.
And I'm Pierre Parker.
We are a husband and wife marriage and relationship coaching duo. We've been married 28 years, together for over 30 years, and it's our goal to help couples communicate more, love more, and build healthy long-term relationships and marriages.
Hmm.
So we're going to bring on our special guest and go ahead and get started with this topic. So
Let's roll.
let's roll, baby.
Mhm.
Hey, you guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, first of all, I want to say how, at least Shahida, and am I pronouncing your right name correctly?
You are. You
Thank
are.
you. Good.
Mhm.
So I had made a comment on one of our other YouTube videos, and her story was so inspiring, and just the beautiful pictures she sent me, it was amazing. So I was like, what, I want to reach out to her. She has some experience in this thing called marriage, and I wanted to reached out to her, and she was willing to come on our channel, and I was really happy about that. And she was just so open, and we conversated back and forth, and then I started following her on Instagram, and I just loved her vibe. I loved the things she was talking about, and I wanted to bring her on with her husband Rashid, and talk about the power of vulnerability and in relationships, especially Black couples,
Mhm.
because and we know, especially for men, it's hard for them to sometimes be vulnerable, even in their own relationships. So
Yeah.
that's why I thought it was important to bring on Rashid and have him also chime in as a Black man doing this thing called marriage.
Yes. Help me, bro. Help me.
Hey,
So,
I'm here for you, brother. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
and you guys actually live close by. You don't live that far from us, which I was also nice to hear. I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about time zones, because
Yeah.
I'm real bad
Ooh,
at that with the
yeah,
time
me too.
zones.
Me too.
So if you guys can just tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the topic of the day.
All righty. Well, first and foremost, Pierre and Angela, thank you so much for inviting us to join you both on this lovely podcast. I did do some research, and I love what
Oh,
Nice.
you two are doing. I think it's
thank
great,
you.
Nice.
breaking down barriers in the realm of relationships, especially in the realm of blacks in this in this country, let alone the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit about myself. I have married to this beautiful woman here. This is my soulmate.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
I took a risk, and it was a risk that I do not regret taking, because if I didn't, I would have regretted it for the rest of my living days. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
love is definitely possible. Finding your soulmate is real, as much as a cliche as it may sound.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Have a medical background, worked in the optical department, making these things you see on my face, and also
Okay.
on Angela's face.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but now I left that field to start my own firm as a licensed financial professional, which is my true passion, and
Nice.
educating our people on the importance of planning in the realm of your finances. So that is
Mhm.
my true calling in life that I love with every ounce of my body. That's and we
Nice.
have
Okay.
yes, we have 6 beautiful children between the two of us. We are a blended family, but we
Nice.
are one nonetheless. And
Yep.
we're just here, serving. All right. There's
Yeah.
only really one type of career in existence, and that's serving. We're just here to serve, and
Yeah.
anything we can offer and provide to our community, hey, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great
Sweet.
intro. Listen, I don't have to
Right,
say
right.
anything.
How you gonna follow up with that one?
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
Yeah. and you probably don't know this, but we were connected through Nani and her art.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes,
So,
Helen.
and that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so that's the connection that we made
Oh, okay.
initially. Yeah, and
Oh,
so
okay.
I know, right? And that was like
Small world.
Small world.
2 years ago. So I was really excited about this whole couples thing and Black love because as a couple, we tend to hang out with other couples, and that's the only way you grow. That's the only way you get better. That's the only way you learn, yourself, and how can you serve in your marriage, and just longevity. So big outs to our couples out there, the Christians, the Beltrons, the Birds. We we connect and we share and we help and we so we need this. This is something that you guys are doing is beautiful. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to share.
Thank you.
And actually, Noni, and it's like I said, it's a small world. She's on it. I guess she was like, "What?"
Yeah.
She goes by Chai Doll on. And she said, "That's me." Okay. So she didn't realize that she knew you guys as well. It is a small world.
Yeah.
Her and I are really close, and I mean, that's a topic of another conversation. If you've seen some of our previous videos, I don't know if you guys have on YouTube. She's on all the time, and there's just whole connection. So
she's a part of the major part of the family.
Right, right. She is. So she's actually the one who's now helping me with my social media because I'm horrible at it. So that beautiful post, she did it.
She did that as well.
She did. Yeah. So
painted
for us. So small world. So it's good that that's how we have a connection.
Matter of fact, she just said y'all need a painting too. So
okay, thank you.
There we go.
We will love one.
There we go. So some of the things I wanted to talk about, and again, I kind of mentioned in the beginning, the vulnerability in a relationship, how that strengthens the relationship, but how it's also been seen as a negative. And again, particularly with Black men, don't be vulnerable, don't show your emotions, all that. But we also know that that vulnerability, that is what can connect your relationship and make it stronger. And so I just wanted to, ask you guys in your own relationship, how has vulnerability, Rashad, now I ask you first as the man, how has that either impacted your relationship positively or negatively? And has it been difficult to get past those walls or those barriers to be vulnerable with Shahidah?
Wow. How long we got? I will forewarn you, and no worries, babe. I won't embarrass you, but I'm very transparent. Everyone who knows me, I'm very transparent. Life's too short to really kind of hold back. As far as how has being vulnerable helped or been a hindrance in our relationship, I don't think it's a hindrance. I will say it was a hindrance early in our relationships due to the fact that there were a lot of barriers that I had built up due to, just previous relationships and experiences that I had went through that left me scarred. Not only that, but traumas from my childhood. So I wasn't very vulnerable in the beginning, and she had to deal with a lot of hell. Pardon my French, but she did, because I wasn't able to express those feelings and emotions that were very deep, that were traumatizing for me. And a lot of times it came out in the form of an attack on her, in a way, because I wasn't mature enough to express myself and to let her know I'm in pain, or I'm hurting, or I don't like how what you said to me. And I've learned over time that I have to open myself to express the things that I've had to go through, right? And by doing that and allowing myself to be vulnerable with the one person that I should be the most vulnerable with, which is my soulmate, it allowed me to tackle the things that I've been struggling with for a very long time, learning things that I didn't even know were there, that even existed. So it allowed me, as let's just say, as an analogy, to peel back those layers of the onion to better understand my pain and how she can help me through that pain, because who else if not her? So being vulnerable is not a weakness, and more Black men need to understand that, because the stigma as Black men being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, and that's the furthest thing. It's the furthest thing. Actually, being vulnerable makes you stronger. Right? It makes you emotionally mature. It helps you advance in this journey we call life, because when you hold all those things in, what do they say? Hurt people hurt people. And being vulnerable is, and I use this analogy a lot, it's like like an addict. They have to admit, I have a problem first. Just like being vulnerable, you have to admit, I've been hurt and I have traumas. And then you can begin the healing process and working with the person closest to you to build that relationship. And it's helped our relationship substantially.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Shahidah, what do you think as being a woman? Because for us, being vulnerable is expected. And I think a lot of times now, women, especially Black women, we're trying to be, tough, because they've told us also, strong Black women. And that sometimes does make it hard for us to break down those walls, especially in the beginning of a relationship, to break down those walls and be vulnerable with this man that, you hope to have this long-term relationship. So how has that impacted you? And
it was huge for me. Learning that he wanted to learn me was like, okay, so I have to let him in. And how do you do that? It's like, how do I let someone in, again, being a woman and having my guards up, because I don't know what this is going to turn into. So for us, I think what made me more vulnerable, with him and continuing that, is we started reading together. And so it was like, okay, we got to fix what's broken from our previous marriages and experiences and things of that nature. So for us to be all our authentic selves, we have to work on ourselves individually first. And so it was that part of going into it for the first time as an individual in a relationship and working on myself. Never done that, and even in relationships that wasn't, sisterhoods, siblings, parents, it was never an individual thing. It was always for the other person. And so it was very different for me, but it was necessary. And I feel like vulnerability is necessary so that, so that you can grow and learn who you are. And that's the only way. It's the only way that you can do that, is being really transparent with yourself. So the book that we ended up getting was The 4 Agreements. And the 4 Agreements. And we read this book together, chapter by chapter, shared, his experiences, mine. And we still use those same tools to this day, even with raising our children. And just, so that for me was that opening door to allow me to let him in and trust that there's not going to be any harm. Because I think in, relationships, and especially with Black love, is that, we always have our guards up, because, we don't know, we'll be ready to, fight, like literally.
Ready to fight.
Listen, you stay in your corner and I got mine, and this is what it is, because my grandmother said, so it's that mentality that we both bring in relationships in general, is, how you're raised. And so then you're standing firm in that. And as a Black woman, I feel like it's been my responsibility to carry the traditions of my grandmother and my mom and, the church or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I want to stand firm in that. But then I had to also open myself up to, what are we building? What does that look
Right.
like? So
Yeah.
Because also you got that, and you were talking about your mother and your grandmother, and times do change. And with those changes, we have to evolve and grow, and our relationships change now versus how our grandparents grew up and our, parents. I came from like because most folks in our age range, we came from divorced parents. And so trying to see that vulnerability, it wasn't there. My parents were from the silent generation, and there was that they didn't show that vulnerability. My father never showed that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And my mother, once they divorced, had to be the strong Black woman, take care of 3 kids. There was not, that vulnerability wasn't there as much. She did show it a little bit, but she had to remain strong and never really show her emotions.
Yeah.
So that was, the times have changed.
Yeah. That was,
Go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
That was like in with me growing up, like you said earlier, like my father, he didn't tell me he loved me until I was an adult.
Or he was proud.
Or that he was proud of me. I knew he did, but I didn't realize that when you're young, you don't understand different things. And I didn't realize that my dad showed love by doing things. He wouldn't tell you, "Oh, son, I love you. I love you." He wouldn't do that, but he might take me and buy me something. You know what I mean? So later on, I started understanding, okay, this is his way of showing love. But that generation, they were just hard. My grandfather and them, he ain't saying nothing about it. Boy, I don't love you. I ain't saying nothing. I ain't gonna say that love word. I ain't saying that. But but here comes a toy or something, So they didn't do that. And I made sure that when we got our kids, I was like, I'm gonna make sure I tell my kids I love them.
Right.
I'm gonna make sure I show
side.
that vulnerable side. I'm gonna let them know I'm proud of them. I probably did a little too much, but I probably went overboard on some things. But I would do it in front of when they getting out the car going to school. Love you, baby. They walking off embarrassed. I didn't care.
No. I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rashid.
I was just gonna say, I don't believe it's a such thing as too much love. There's not enough of it, in my opinion.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly.
So you said something about trust, which is very important, because that's an order for, at least for me, to let down, and I'm sure most people, to let down that guard and be vulnerable. There has to be that trust element. That has to come first and foremost. At least in our relationship, that had to come. I had to know that if I show this vulnerable side, that, hey, you're not gonna judge it. You're not gonna make fun of it. You're going to respect it. And then that trust and showing more vulnerability can come, a little bit, little by little. So that's really important, the trust factor. So how do you think gender roles and stereotypes play into the whole vulnerability? I mean, like we said, women, like we said, oh yeah, women, it's okay for you to be vulnerable. Men, no. So, I mean, how has that played a significant role in shaping how we express our vulnerability? How do you think?
Go ahead.
He's like,
All right. In regards to gender roles,
Yeah.
and this is just my opinion. This is my opinion. And I'll just tell you a little story. I tried to be the mother. And when my kids were my first 2 children were born, I was very hands-on. Right. That's a whole nother story. But I was placed in that role. It took me a long time to realize that there are things that a man just can't do. We just can't.
Just
right?
can't.
And I think the whole gender role thing has been blurred. I think that inherently, as men, there are certain things that we come with by default or predisposed, or we come equipped with those things, right? And that's providing security, protection, that providing the strength, right? Not to say that women don't have strength. Women are probably stronger than men for all intents and purposes, considering everything that women have to go through.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there are things that a woman has that a man can't do, right? And I think what ends up happening is, especially in today's society, people want to outperform. Like genders want to outperform each other. Men are like, I could do anything a woman can do. I don't need a woman. That's nonsense, right?
Yes.
Or a woman's like, I don't need a man. And especially in the Black community, that was something that was established, but that's a whole rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
It was the division that was created in our homes as Black families because there was an agenda there. And now it's like at an all-time high. But yet people are so unhappy because these roles have been blurred, right? It is an honor. It is an honor to raise children, right? It is like, and a woman can only nurture, and it's a beautiful thing. Nothing on earth can nurture like a woman. It's your superpower, because men, we don't nurture that way. We're not capable. So as men, though, what we can do is show you how to solve. Like, we're problem solvers. Okay, problem, let's fix it. Right? I may not get it right. Right? I may not get it right. Right, Pierre? But I'm going to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we do. And sometimes, sometimes like men having the ability to just be logical is a good thing. And then sometimes women being emotional is a good thing. But too much of either one isn't a good thing. But again, it's been so displaced. There's just nothing but confusion now. So for me, I believe gender roles are very important because it creates the balance within the family, because it's so necessary, right? It teaches women, teach young women how to be women. Men teach men how to be men. You can't, that role can't be reversed. It's just not possible.
Exactly.
Right? So that's just my 2 cents on gender roles.
It's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that, because I've always said, we would talk about stuff like this, and I've always said that men, we're blunt objects. We're blunt objects. We're like a missile. We're like the ones that you point us in that direction, we either go fix it or we destroy it. You see what I'm saying? The woman is like the file for the blunt object, or the chisel that chisels us and guides us and sets us on the right path and all that stuff. So there's a reason why there's a man and there's a woman. I'm not going to get on my soapbox and get into this whole thing, but there's a reason, because like you just said, men are set up this way and women are set up this way. Men, we don't do the nurturing thing like women. Women do that. We can't do that. There's a lot of things that we have daughters. I've raised them, but there's some things that I can't do to show them what to do to become a young lady, and vice versa. I have a son. We have a son. There's things that she couldn't show him what to do to become a young man. So you have to have the right gender roles. You have to have them.
And I know when. Oh, go ahead.
Let me just say this. I will say this. Each role can use a little bit of the other role. I think that men, we can use a little bit of that emotion, right? And that's the part of the vulnerability, because when we don't allow ourselves to be emotional, how can our partners understand us? How do they know what's hurting us, what's plaguing us? Because we get beat out in the world. We get beat up in the world a lot, right? And then we come home and it's like, I don't want to talk about it. But that's that emotional side that we need to tap into, because we have it too, right? But then there's times where, you come home and your woman's like, oh my God, let me tell you about this. And and
you're like, exactly. Hold on. Wait, let me go chill for a little bit.
5 minutes.
Let me just decompress.
Yes. And that's where the logical aspect of women can kind of take on a little bit too. Like logically, do I have to go through all the details? Let me just get to the point, right? I'm not saying it has to be that way all the time, but balance.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to interject there.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
It's so true. When our son was in his teens, so our son is like, when he started really hitting his puberty and stuff like that, he shot up. So he shot up to like 6 feet. I'm only 5'1". So he would start, his chest got a little swole and everything, and started testing and started, doing some stuff. And sometimes I'd have to, because I knew if Pierre found out what was going on, it would just be,
we probably wouldn't have a son to this.
all hell would break loose. So sometimes I did protect him, but sometimes I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And at that time, that's when I knew that his role as father was so important, because I cannot, even as much as I, strong Black mother and all this, I also knew that my son was at a point where I could not physically, if need be, protect myself. Not to say my son was violent, but as you know, raising kids, boys, they get to a certain age and they feeling themselves. That testosterone is running through their veins and everything. And so with him being around, with him being the father, and him coming in saying, this is not going to happen, you will not disrespect these women in this house. He had to put our son in check, because that was the time where my son was not really listening to me. But as soon as he said something, it was a whole different ball game. They still had their battles, they had their back and forth, but he had to handle it. And that's, again, that's the importance of those gender roles. Not to say that he wasn't nurturing, because he was very nurturing towards our son when he needed to be, and towards our daughter. And when it came to our daughter, he was like, hey, Angela, you need to deal with this.
You deal with this one.
He couldn't understand some of the things she was going through. As we know, when young girls start, puberty, and they start having their, cycle and everything, it's a whole different, ball game with the girls. And that mental game that little girls like to play and young women like to play. So that's something I had to deal with. So you're right. You're spot on when you're saying that those gender roles are very important. And it's something that they're trying to, like you said, by design, they're trying to mesh those two together and blur those lines. So that's so true. So true. So how do you think the media, as we're talking about gender roles and blurring the lines, how do you think the media and just social norms, how is that affecting what's going on in our relationships, and specifically the vulnerable side of our relationships?
Well, Rashad would say, these are conversations we have all the time with the roles, and I'll stand firm in mine. It's like, oh, well, this is an agenda now. The woman, the woman's on the screen, or so it's like, with social media, or just the media in general, it's, there's movies out there, right? There's some, Tyler Perry's done some good film showing Black love and, the relationships and family dynamics and different things. And so, some things we relate to, but I don't necessarily, I don't consider the media and their depiction of Black love. I don't consider that in our relationship. I don't use that as a like a standard of what we should be striving for, or, things of that nature. With our kids, I will say this, because we're talking about, our children and vulnerability and roles in the family. We would have family meetings with our kids. We have boys and girls. We have 3 boys and 3 girls. Our oldest son lives in Texas with his mom. And
Okay.
so 5 kids in the house. And we would have family meetings together and talk about that, you know, because they're seeing social media, they're watching movies, you know, and when it's violence or if it's talking about, you know, the police and brutality and sex or just all of those things, we talk about them. And we're like, okay, so what are you watching? Okay, why do you watch that? Or what do you think? Oh, well, this happened and this happened and this is why. And we have this whole conversation about everybody gets to say something, you know, even the youngest one. The youngest is 9. And so, so from 9, 16, 18, 19, 22, right?
Oh,
is the
wow.
age
Okay.
group. Yeah. And yeah, so when they were teens, you know, early teens and the younger, you know, age group, we would sit there and have those conversations about that. And it was really, they were educating us a lot of the times.
Yeah, because we're not big social media or TV watchers.
Yeah.
Me and Shahidah. So our kids were being, they were the ones that were being bombarded by that stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, they were. And so what did we do? It's like, okay, well, we're going to have to do phone checks. And we did phone checks. So we would collect their phones. And it was kind of like they, you know, they felt like, you know, maybe they were in trouble, but, you know, initially. And then they learn to trust and to be vulnerable with it. Keyword. And we would go and check. And even if they delete it, we know how to retrieve it. So if you guys, we own your account. So just so you know, you can't lie, you know, about any of it, because this is the thing. You're not in trouble. I need to know who you are. And I need to know what you're watching. And I need to know what interests you. And as a parent, it's important to me. And that's the only thing, that was the only way that we could connect with them on that level. And then we would give them phone backs. We need all the passwords because they change them. And, you know, and that was kind of our way to connect and communicate and to learn about what the media is out there pushing and things of that nature.
And I'll add, we were very conscious when we first got together. And that was, we wanted to be the primary and really only example and influence in regards to gender roles and what Black love is, right? Because we are our children's first example, right? And not only that, our community as well. So we've always conducted ourselves in a way that was, you know, honorable to our community and first and foremost to our children. And because there is an agenda, let's just face it. Social media, these TV series, they are painting a narrative, and we don't subscribe to it, right? And but I do think that it's important that, I mean, you guys could do a podcast on that alone. That's a podcast in itself, and how we can change that narrative, because this isn't the epitome of Black love. This isn't the epitome of it, because they're slandering it at the end of the day. They're making it a joke. And I don't see any other culture, and I envy that, doing what we're doing. So
Well, I have a whole warehouse full of boxes, soap boxes that I always talk about in our podcast, that I keep saying one day I'm gonna have to do a podcast and open up my warehouse and pull out some of them boxes. And
Ben Smith is saying, "Don't be afraid, baby, to tell the truth." He'll sometimes I have to reel him in. I'm like, "Babe, this is not the soapbox time. We're not trying to get kicked off too."
Look, I done said it plenty of times. I'm the biggest conspiracy theorist, and I ask questions. The thing is, people, right on, there you go. That's right. It's like, what people don't understand about conspiracy theorists, and I actually like it. I like that name. Call me that. But basically, what conspiracy theorists are is just people who ask questions. That's really the bottom line. It's people that ask questions. Why are you doing this? Why is this way? But people don't realize that the term conspiracy theorist was created by the FBI to try to debunk people from asking questions. So
That's right.
That's some other research people got to actually do to understand. Let me get off this. Let me put that box back in the warehouse.
I love it. I love it.
But in all honesty, if you think about it, when we're talking about the media, we're talking about conspiracy theorists, and you said it also, Rashid, that by design
Mhm.
in the media, the way they're portraying Black love,
Mhm.
which is totally false
Yep.
for the most part,
Mhm.
it's by design. Because if you have strong families, you have strong communities. They don't want that.
No.
They don't want that. They don't want to see us raising our children to be strong men and women.
No.
They don't want to see that. So, and again, and they definitely don't want to see us being vulnerable with each other, because when we're vulnerable with each other as a family, as a couple, then we're able to connect and become closer. Our communication gets better. Our strengthen our relationship. Then you strengthen your families, you strengthen your communities. So
Yeah.
that's all, like I said, by design.
By design, they understand that we come from kings and queens,
Mhm.
so they don't want the kings and queens to be around because they want to stay in power. So the best way to do it is to keep showing you all of this stuff that's dumbing us down, that's dumbing you
Yep.
down, dumbing the generations down, putting stuff in your food and making you stupider, and putting stuff in the air that's making you dumb, putting people out there, like the Cardi B's and the Megan Thee Stallions. There's no other
represent a healthy relationship.
There's no other culture where you see a Megan Thee Stallion or a Cardi B.
Nope.
Like I said, I'm trying to put that back in the warehouse, but we keep looking at it. But there's no other culture. You tell me in the Indian culture, do you see anything equivalent of a Cardi B or a Megan Thee Stallion?
No.
Do you see in the Asian culture? You know what I'm saying?
No.
We can keep going. You don't see it. It's only in the Black culture. And they want us to stay dumbed down. They don't want the kings and queens to rise again.
They don't want that strength. Right.
Great.
Look. Okay. Look, let me put it back in the warehouse now.
There you go.
I told him he has to have his own podcast. I said, you have your own podcast, and you can do whatever
get
you
my
want.
own podcast. I'll probably had a lot of people that would. Well, I don't know. I'll probably get a lot of people.
You probably get a lot of people that would.
Oh,
You would. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. So, what do you think? Some strategies that Black couples can use to create safe space for being vulnerable in their relationship? What are some areas? What are some ways that, I mean, even in your own relationship, because we need that safe space. We need to be able to, come home, take off our as colorblind by Noni, or Noni would say, take off that PR person, that public relations person when we get home. So what do you think what are some ways and some ways we can create safe space even within our own relationship to be vulnerable?
Okay. I'll start it. Listen. Number one, listen. And listen is silence backwards.
Yes. Oh.
So or rearrange the words. Rearrange the word. Rearrange the letter. Rearrange the letter of listen, and it's silence.
Okay.
And it's important. I think that number one is listening, and it's not listening with intention of getting something out of it and necessarily. It's really what Rashad would say is become the person, and listen. So I need to become you. I need to stand in your shoes for a moment and become you, so that I'm able to listen and understand what you need and what you need to express. And patience. Oh, this man taught me patience. Listen, and it's the kind of patience, like I need 5 minutes. Matter of fact, I need 45. I need 45 minutes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right, to myself. And then we could talk about it, because I was never, like you said, with family, parents, people upbringing, I never knew that I had to schedule time to speak to you, necessarily. It's like now's not the time. I'm like, okay, so you have to be able to know your audience, in essence. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't a good time. All right, let me be. So that patient part of it, but practicing it every day, even with the phone, right? It's like, do I call and tell him everything? This is happening. I turned the corner. I opened the refrigerator. All of those things. They don't need to know all the details all the time, right? And you have a life outside of your husband, your spouse. Who are you? Right.
Yes.
And you guys did a podcast on codependency, or interview on codependency. And now a lot of that has to do with the behavior in your relationship. So the strategies for us was just really being transparent. I need to know. And I don't care what it looks like. I need to know. I don't care if it hurts me right now. I need to know. We have this saying with one of our couple groups, that's your SHIT, because you're come with it. You're emotional, you're having a panic attack, and you sit there and I'm like, that's yours. That don't have nothing to do with me, but I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna listen, but that's yours and own it. And so those are the strategies we use, is just own your stuff, really own it.
So how did you get to the point though where you felt comfortable enough to in your relationship to be that open? Because it had to start from a foundation. Maybe Rashad said something or acted a way that made you feel comfortable, because again, that takes time. So how did you get to that point in your relationship that you felt comfortable enough to own your
Right. Well, in the beginning, we both had our walls up. We had our guards up. Right. And we had to, one, we had to both want to do that. That's where it really starts. Right. If one person wants it and the other one doesn't, you're just going to clash.
Right.
And what ends up happening is one person will end up outgrowing the other. And then that one will feel left behind and the other one will feel like they're outgrowing. And so there was this, I had the desire to want to understand her, because I'm like, if I don't understand her, we're not going to work. And I think if that takes, you have to be realistic with yourself first and foremost, and understand that, okay, this isn't something I'm strong at. I would always tell her, I've never been with a woman that communicated. And she wants to communicate. That's her love language. And in the beginning, that was very difficult for me. And, because of a lot of things that I was taught from my mother and my father, my father pretty much preached that you do everything. So that's one less excuse that a woman can use on you. And my mother taught me that a woman, you can't control a woman. If the woman is an individual, she does whatever she want to do. If you're going to love her, love her. If not, leave her be. So those were the extremes that she had to deal with when it came to me. And so in order for us to come up with strategies so that we can work together through this relationship, I had to want that. I had to break down my barriers that I held on to strongly. And we fought a lot about that, because it was, what's my purpose? Because I did everything. Our youngest daughter, I would feed her, change her diaper, I would make dinner, go to work. I was doing it all because of my belief, or what was instilled in me by my father. So I had to hear her. I had to hear her. What's my need? What's my purpose? Why am I even here? You're doing all this, right? So I had to listen. I had to empty myself. So this is a strategy that I use that I got from a gentleman when I was in San Diego. I had to listen to her. And I have this saying where, are you listening, and do you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So I had to empty myself so that I could receive what it is that she was telling me. And then I had to, analyze it, digest it, and then implement it. And that's not easy for men because a lot of times we don't listen well, and we sure as hell don't communicate well, right? That takes time. And believe me, everyone on this that is listening, it takes work and it's exhausting. And a lot of times as men, we don't want to hear it. Let's just keep it a buck. I got my own things I'm dealing with. But my wife, she shoots straight. You know, I love it. Sometimes it's brutal. Yeah. But she said something to me. She said, she's like, Rashad, you're always tired. It's never a good time for you, Rashad. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? She has a point. Yeah. She has a really good point. And so men, we have to alter some things and sit through those conversations, even when we don't want to. So that's the work part. So there's not an easy answer to that. It's just you have to put in the work. It's not a secret formula or, hey, do this, do that. No, men, I could speak on our behalf because I am one. It takes work, and you got to want it. And if you could do that and truly empty yourself to listen and to receive, you guys can work through any issue or problem that you're facing in your relationship, and you'll be better off because of it.
And one other thing we also practice is not having expectations.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So it's people, you know, we get it from everyone. Like, what? How do you do that? You know, but it's not expecting, you know, the walls to be blue when you walk in the room, you know, and when you're going in expecting this answer, or you're expecting to be coddled, or you're expecting to be intimate, or you're expecting to be praised,
or you're happy.
You're right. Or you're expecting this person to make me happy. That's an expectation.
Right.
And and it's weight, you know, and so you're going to give him that responsibility for your life.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So we don't practice that. So that's where, you know, you're able to, you know, we're able to do that, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that makes sense. And I know for us, and it took me a while to not be judgy. I call him judgy. Sometimes I can be judgy too. I think I'm a little more open. Just my personality is a little more more, you know, we always say I'm the one who floats in the air and he's the one that pulls me down. He's the anchor, but I'm pulling him up a little bit to say, okay, come on, let's just do this. Yep. So he's had to, and I've had to on some degree learn not to be, when he tells me something or when he's coming to me with something, not to judge, not to immediately judge what he's saying to me. And I've had to tell him, and I told him even with the kids, listen to what they're saying before you say no. Yeah, even if the no is still going to come, don't let that be the first thing. So we've had to practice, you know, creating that safe space by not judging what the other person is saying. And that can be hard. Yes. But we've had to go through some things and had some talks. And I mean, I'll just be open. I had told him at one point that I feel like sometimes, because we've been together over 30 years, so we've grown up together basically. And I told him at one time, I said, I feel that you're holding me back from certain things. And he didn't realize it. And he was very apologetic. And now he's being more open to my, you know, really to my personality and how I am, because I'll start a project and be like, I'm bored. You know, that's my person. I'm bored. I don't want to do it anymore.
I'm the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. He'll stick with it until the wheels fall off. And I'm like, no, that's no fun no more. I don't want to do it.
Because my dad had always taught me back in the day, if you start something, you finish it. You know what I mean? That's kind of one of the man things that people tell them. Look, if you start something, you better finish it. So time I get into some situation or something that I'm doing and I'm hating it and I'm like, but I gotta finish. And she's just like, just stop. And I'm like,
okay. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get better.
And her thing is, you ain't loyal to them. You don't have to be loyal to them. The only ones you got to be loyal to is me and the family. Forget everybody else. Just stop.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better. I'm trying.
Yeah. You
but
guys
I mean, that's.
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was
No,
just
I was
gonna
gonna
say,
say,
my mother taught me that. Like she said, if you're gonna do, she said, do it right the first time or don't do it at all. That's what my
Yeah.
mother taught me. And what you guys are saying is one thing we practice too, is tell your truth.
Yes.
Like she said,
Yeah.
no matter how painful it is. So everyone listening, tell your truth.
Yeah.
Tell your
yeah,
truth.
That's
tell your
really what it
truth.
is. That's the strategy. Tell your truth.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you don't just come out and gut somebody with it, but tell your
Yeah.
truth, right? In a way
Yeah.
that's respectful and not degrading. That is huge. And
Exactly.
Angela saying that just made me think of that, because that's her philosophy. You told him your
Yeah.
truth. I feel like you're holding me back.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Pierre has one or two things to do. He can either listen and level
Mhm.
up, or he will
Yep.
be left behind.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's just the facts of it all. So that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautifully said,
Yeah.
Angela. Beautiful.
Oh, thank
And
you.
look, trust me, it hurt. It hit me. It was like
Oh, yeah.
somebody punching me in the chest, like with
Oh, I
a
know.
sledgehammer. Somebody was like, "Oh, really? All this time?" Yeah.
Oh, it hurts.
So
But then once I said it, he really did. He stepped up to the plate and he's, letting me spread my wings a little more and without the judgment.
Mhm.
Not that he, it was my perception of him holding me back, because if I would tell him something, then and he didn't react or say
the
something
way that you wanted me to.
the way, or I didn't feel like he was being what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't being, what's the word I'm looking for? Supportive.
Yeah.
I didn't feel he was being supportive. Then I was like,
Yeah.
well, you know what? You're holding me back. And so now he's much more open and much more supportive. And he'll like, okay, well, and what do you need or whatever.
Yeah.
But so that has also made me feel more comfortable in trying other things that he might not necessarily. I mean, believe me, this YouTube channel, he didn't want to do it. We were started off as audio, and then I said, well, let's go to being on camera. And he was like, even though he's a musician and always in front of people, he was like, but he did it, and now he's enjoying it.
Yes.
So again, it's that not being so judgmental that has created that safe space for us. And also, not that I don't, well, I guess we set our own boundaries, but setting those boundaries in the relationship, you have to set those boundaries. And the other person needs to respect those boundaries as well.
Yeah.
So that's another way of creating that safe space.
Yeah. We got people that's chimed in
Oh,
that we haven't even
I'm
acknowledged
sorry.
yet. So,
Hello, Mia's Bell. She says order and structure. I guess that was something we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Hey, my dear.
what's up, little bro? My little brother
Miss Carmen
and my sister.
Jones
My sister.
and Bernice McDowell.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, you're okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Hey, Auntie.
She said amen about
Amen.
something that we was talking. One of the things we was talking
Right.
about.
Thank
You guys we were all on a roll, so it was hard to stop and try to acknowledge them. But I didn't want to mess up any thoughts or anything like that. But
because I'm good for losing train of thought. I've been like, what
Oh, yeah.
was I talking about? So thank you guys for joining us. And I mean, we don't want to keep, I know you guys have a 50th birthday party to go to. So we're going to wrap it up really soon so you guys can go have your fun.
yeah,
But we definitely want to get you guys back on. You guys have a lot of knowledge, wisdom, experience. So we'll get you guys back on and we'll talk about some more juicy stuff.
We got to talk about because we got to talk about the blended family thing.
Oh yeah,
that's what I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we can talk
absolutely.
Yeah, because you got that. It's a blended family.
Because
so
I
you
think
said 6, right? 6 altogether.
Yeah,
6.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because isn't that what you commented on? You commented on.
Shahidah, was that the topic or the podcast?
Yep.
Commented on?
It was. Yep.
Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Beautiful family.
Yeah, so that's when we really got to touch on that one.
Yeah, because
we would love to.
We have a unique blended family, and Noni is part of that blended family.
Yeah, very,
very much so.
So we have a guy on here, Ben Smith 922. He said, "Love that jacket, bro."
Hey, Ben, my man, that's my brother right there. Thank you, Ben.
All right. So, what are some of the ways our community Black community has supported or hindered the development of being vulnerable in our relationships? And I mean,
Man, I'll make
I'll
it quick.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can answer that.
Go ahead. Sure.
You
Okay.
go ahead, babe. Yeah, we can answer that question about
Okay.
our community.
How's it hindered or benefited? You know, I look at that. That's a double-edged sword in a sense. One, because we don't really see it much anymore, right? From a society or community standpoint, like we don't even know our neighbors. Like it's changed. But when I do see when I see our community and you know our elders that are still together, what that does is it shows you the script and the prototype that Black love is a real thing and it can last.
Yeah.
And if you ever have the opportunity or privilege to sit and listen to your elders, like I'm one of my aunts on and her husband, they've been together for over 30 years. I might be short. They might have been 40.
Yeah.
Right. To see
40.
them still together. Right. And I know they, you know, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Right. I know there was some rain and storms, you know, but they're still together. Right. Because it dismisses what's trying to be promoted, that Black love can't happen when it is around us.
Yeah.
It's just we may not see it out, but if you have family and you see your family still together, that is a beautiful thing because that shows resilience, right? It shows that love is real, and I'm a big proponent of love. And like I said earlier, there's not enough of it in the world. The world is a hard place, and we need to see those things, especially in the Black community. A lot of people call us a power couple. I didn't dub that, but I do want to be an example to our people of this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm honored, and it's a privilege to be able to represent that because it is something that unfortunately is being lost in translation. So I just feel that it's our responsibility, also Pierre, you and Angela as well, to continue to do what you're doing. The podcast, you know, when you're out and about, having that conduct about yourself and that integrity to show people that yes, Black is beautiful and Black love is even more beautiful. So that's just my input on it.
Yeah.
Miss Vernice said 53 years, nephew.
53
so 53
years.
years.
Thank you.
Oh,
53
yes.
years.
That's
Right.
beautiful. Yes.
So when you talk about transitions, you know, in 53 years, all the transitions they had to make. Raising a family, getting married, you know, jobs, parents, death of parents, siblings, just like the transition in life, but going through it together.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the most important thing with that is there had to be communication within there.
Right.
There had to be. You can't have that many years without some type of communication.
Right.
And that's what we try to preach a lot is you have to communicate. You have to.
And like you said, Shahidah, not just not just talking, but also listening.
Yeah.
So yes, that's very important, the communication aspect. And I think people, when they talk about communication, all they talk about is talking.
Yeah.
It's what are you listening to? What are you hearing? And what are you really hearing? Not what you want to hear, but what that person's really trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So that's, and that's again a part of the aspect of being vulnerable too, is being able to talk and then really hear what that person's saying and going deep within and saying, okay, am I really hearing that person?
Yeah.
You know?
And so, and Rashad, you touched on it earlier, which is the hard thing for us to do is just to sit back. And this is what she had to tell me to do.
Yeah.
Just listen. I don't need you to try to fix it. I don't need you to try to tell me how to do whatever. I just need your ears. Just listen. You know how hard that was? That's hard.
I know.
That's hard because we want to fix it. We want to fix it. We fixers. We said it earlier. We're fixers.
Yes.
So,
and that's where being vulnerable plays a huge factor in men being better supporters of our counterpart, or
Exactly.
I don't like to say better half, right? We're equal, shoulder by shoulder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Equal.
We
Yes,
talk
I
about
love
that.
that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Ben
So,
Smith said, how do you keep the peace when you talk to each other?
oh, that's a good question. How do we keep the peace? Well, I'm very emotional. It was Keith, right?
Ben.
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 I'm
Ben.
very emotional. I had to first she knows it, but I verbalize it to her. And what I have to do sometimes when things are getting heated, I have to express that. I'm getting elevated. I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'll say, conversation over. I see where this is going. Right.
Yeah.
And we both have to just stop right there. It's not agreeing to disagree. It's obvious we're not going to agree on everything.
Right.
But when things start to escalate, time out.
Mhm.
Literally, time out. And
Yeah.
you as a man, especially because we do get elevated and we're raw emotion. We're the epitome of raw emotion, or the physical representation. We're physical. So we have to understand that, Ben, and then we have to step back, take a moment, breathe, do what you have to do to get your spirit, to bring your levels down,
Right.
and then re-engage the conversation with a more level head. That's what I do.
And re-engage at a proper time, right? So not tomorrow, 3 days from now, a week from now, because with women, it's not finished. The conversation isn't over, right?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let you take your time out, right? But also we do it in front of the kids. So there's no hidden doors. So if they're hearing you argue, have a misunderstanding, the conversation is getting loud, but they also need to see, how do you fix it?
That's right.
Right? They need to see that, because they are seeing the disruption.
They hear it all.
And they hear it. So then they hear you fix it too. Right? Because we are being watched, and we are the role models in our home.
Yeah.
So that's something that we do to keep the peace, because we are also in tune that our children are listening.
And that's really good. That's the first time I've heard a couple say that they do have those discussions in front of their children. And on the onset, I'm like, in my head thinking, because we really didn't. We tried to remove ourselves to make sure they didn't see it. But what you're saying makes also a lot of sense, that you're showing them how to have a disagreement without it going ballistic. So that also keeps you accountable for how you two interact with each other. And then you're teaching your children how to resolve conflict without it going, over the going over the top, and doors slamming. And that's hard, because we do get our emotions, and you do want to slam a couple doors. But you're that's and even then your children have to see, okay, yes, they're very upset, but this is how they're resolving that issue. So that's very interesting. I don't think I've heard
that's the
a
first time
couple
I
of
heard that one.
mention that, or admit to that. So that's really good that you're doing it that way.
Yeah. But one of the biggest things, Ben, is like he said, what I would do when we would get into heated arguments. We never really got into real heated arguments that much like that. But when we get to that point, I would stop and I would leave. And then she'd come back later, we'd come back later on, and like you said, resolve it. But you don't stay there and stay engaged in the whole thing, because it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, then it's going to get disrespectful. You're going to start saying things that you don't mean, and all kind of crazy things. So the best thing to do is remove yourself. I would leave. I go outside. I go to my studio in the back, or I'll go take a drive. I'll go sit down and play video games or something else to get my mind to calm down. And what we've also said in the past is, women, when your man does that, don't follow him and continue to try to engage. That just makes it worse. And same thing with men. If your woman says, I need a break, I'm out of here, let her go.
Yeah.
Because that's her way of trying to calm down. So let that person have that calm down time. And then you come back and you re-engage and you can talk sensibly together, and you most likely can resolve some things. And if you can't resolve it, it's okay, even though I can't stand it, to agree to disagree. Because I'm like, she be like, well, we just gonna have to agree to disagree. And I'm like, no, somebody got to win. No.
Yeah. Right.
Like, no, there's gonna be a winner. God dang it.
Right.
Like, I would like to say this too to Ben, and this is just for everybody on the call. Whenever we do get into heated debates with our spouses or our partners, we have to think about where's this coming from? Is it really my partner that got me triggered like this?
Yeah.
There's this thing also we came across called your core trauma. A lot of the reason why we behave the way we do and getting to these heated things is because of that core trauma.
Yep.
It's not your partner. Your partner maybe is just a symptom of it, or they may have triggered a part of that trauma, but they don't have anything to do with it. And you have to dig deep, again, peel those layers back to find out, why am I so easily triggered when my wife touches my shoulder this way or she talks to me this way? It's not necessarily your partner, or my husband does this. It just drives me nuts. It's something internal deep in you that's been there. And you have to put the work in to figure that out. So Ben and anybody else listening, find that core trauma on why it is you're elevated whenever these things come up in your relationships.
And I will say, because Rashad as well, he would leave. That was his way of leaving and running. But I'm cooling down. But also it was a trigger for me. You're abandoning me.
Yep.
Every time you leave. So then I'm even more fired up on the inside because that's my core trauma. So yes, I want to participate in this, fixing this situation, but you leave.
Yeah.
And I don't know when you're coming back. So it's not this, okay. So we had to work that out, and I had to express to that, situation. After a period of time, I said, actually, this is hurting me more than it's helping me in this situation. I want to help you get through it, but it's actually hurting me. And then he was like,
the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
And it, like you said earlier, Pierre, it was like I was a punch in the chest. And it was like, oh my God, I never looked at it like that, because I was caught up in my own SHIT. I never took the time out to understand that I was making her feel abandoned. And so now when we do get heated, it's just kind of like, let's revisit this in an hour, right? There's a time frame around it. So she's not feeling abandoned, and I don't feel like I'm running, right? Or I'm running away. Yeah. So those are
that's how we keep the peace.
That's how we keep the peace. It takes, and again, it takes work.
Yeah.
It
does.
And in a lot of cases, you're the first one to break that cycle.
Yeah.
So you're learning still too. So it's not always going to be easy, but Ben, just keep putting in the work. And I promise you, man, it will get easier, and you'll find you'll like what you start to see from yourself. Yeah. You're right. Yep. And that's where I've gotten. I'm liking the person I'm becoming. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
And interesting enough, the last question I have, and you kind of touched upon it, is the trauma part of it. So how can the power of vulnerability contribute to the healing of trauma?
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, she comes up with these questions, and I'll be like,
wow.
It's good. Look, it's good to see somebody else go, huh?
Right. Well, I think I will say this. I think it's necessary. It's necessary to be vulnerable. It's necessary to trust. Trust is a huge thing, but if you want to change and you want to grow and you want to develop and you want a relationship, because there's a lot of single people out there that want marriages. Listen,
it's rough in them streets right now.
It will show, right? But it will show you who you are as a person, and if you got to do the work, and you have to see it, and you have to let that down. But yes, not everybody needs to know everything, right? How do I trust that? You can't. You don't know. But if you want this marriage, you want a relationship that's real,
Mhm.
you have to
Right.
share it. You have to share it, and it's necessary to have a relationship, you know, with sharing your traumas. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I feel that especially for men, and I was talking to my friend about this the other day, especially if you've been burnt, or you've been through some very tough relationships. Men, we don't let go easy. We don't forgive, and we put these walls up because
Yeah.
it's hard for men to deal with that. Because if I open myself up to you and expose my heart and give it to you, you can destroy me. You can
Mhm.
literally destroy me as a man. So men, our defenses are held up tight, especially if we've been burnt. And
Yep.
so we carry that defense mechanism in a relationship, and something may happen, and then that guard goes right back up.
Yeah.
And then your partner or your wife is feeling like we're not getting anywhere. We keep going down the same road. And in
Yeah.
order for us as men to grow in our current relationship, we have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we begin to trust, which is another hard thing for us to do. But
Mhm.
you have to start talking about it. You have to be like, yes, in my previous relationship, this happened. I was abandoned. I was cheated on, or I was this, I was that. You have to express those things, right? Because this person isn't that person.
Mhm.
That person is the previous person is what you experienced one thing with, but you don't have to assume this person's going to do the same thing. And the only way that can happen is if you express that, and that takes vulnerability. Men are prideful. We have an ego.
Yeah.
But we got to scrap that.
Women too.
Because that will prevent you from growing into a better person. It'll prevent you from building relationships with the people that God put in your path. I truly believe that. Right?
Yeah.
So we have to be vulnerable. It's not a matter of it's you have to, because that's the only way that you're going to grow and get to a better place. Only way.
Exactly.
So you got to talk about that trauma.
Exactly. And I think one of my traumas and the way he has helped me, and I don't even think he knows this, but one of my traumas, because I was adopted, so I have that abandonment trauma. And so in previous, and even though we've been together forever, previous relationships, I was always that, okay, why aren't you calling me? Because why aren't you doing? Because I was afraid of leaving. And then with me being that way, they ended up leaving. So when he and I started dating, I mean, I never really talked about it and expressed that to him as a trauma of mine, but because he kept showing up and because he kept being there,
I was
and
annoying.
he was, and in the beginning of our relationship, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, so we had a long distance relationship. But even with that, he would call me every day. We'd have conversations. There wasn't any Facebook or any
No, none
or
of that.
or any
FaceTime.
FaceTime. I wasn't that. So him showing up and being there and being consistent, I eventually said, "Oh, he's going to stick around. I don't have to be like, where are you? How come you're not called?" I didn't have to be that annoying Angela. I could release that and be who I am today, and that issue of abandonment, it's not there anymore. So that was one way that he helped me through it, and I was able to be vulnerable and show that, or not have to show that side of me, because he was consistent. He showed up. He's told me that, hey, I'm not going nowhere. We're together. This is it. So that, at least for me, that was one of my traumas that I had to get over. So
Yep.
he didn't have no traumas, huh? He was just, he was cool. He didn't have no traumas.
No, I had traumas.
But
I had traumas, but you helped me to get over.
Come on.
I had my traumas, but she actually helped me to get over my traumas, by just being the way that she was, being there listening and
Yeah.
just being supportive. You know, it was
Mhm.
a trust thing for me. And,
Yeah.
you know, she basically, she checked all the boxes in the trust area. So I was cool.
Yeah.
So, but it was rough in the beginning for me.
Yeah.
And she knows all the stuff that I was going through at the time,
Yeah.
other relationships and stuff like that. So it's the baggage that we carry.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she made it to where, you know, I didn't have a problem with leaving the baggage outside the door when I got around her,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then when it came time, she had no problem with me opening the baggage and saying, "This is what's in my bags, you
Yeah.
know, this, can you help me deal with this?"
Right.
Yeah.
So
that is beautiful. Man, you gave me
and
goosebumps. Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
yeah,
So, I
Well,
mean,
I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. This was beautiful, and you guys
yes,
have a beautiful family. I really love the pictures, and I think Jada, that was really like, oh, she just all these beautiful pictures. Look how open she is. Let's
yeah,
bring them on.
yeah,
Because I'm always looking for, you know, it doesn't have to be a couples that are been together forever. I just want to have couples that have, you know, of course, something to discuss, but they have a strong relationship and have a little bit of experience behind you, and have gone through some things. And you
mhm,
know, your blended family, you have to have had some ups and downs and had to
yeah,
learn some things. So, we truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and just talking to us about, you know, how you guys have gone through your vulnerability and how you're dealing with it and how you continue to deal with it. So
yeah.
thank you again for coming on.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any like social media handles you want to send out there so people can follow you? And you kind of talked about your business a little bit, but is there any place they can follow you? And I also put it in the description too. So
Yeah, that'd be
any
great. My
yeah,
personal page is I_am_Shahida. I am
okay.
Shahida on Instagram. Rashad
Okay.
is
Rashad Davi, which is my middle name, but it's Rashadavee. I'm new to the social media game.
Okay.
Conspiracy, myself, brother Pierre, but I just got into it. But I'm on Facebook, Instagram,
yeah.
so
Okay.
you can catch me on those. I'm posting videos from time to time. Working
Okay.
on a YouTube channel, so I'll be joining you two in
Okay.
that realm too. And
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
nice,
so
Yeah. So yeah, we're
nice.
working on all these things, and we're business partners, so we work together, and you know we help protect families, and we do counseling, financial counseling.
Okay.
So you can
Oh,
always we
cool.
could put a link in there for people who want to
yes.
get their one-on-one
Yep.
free consultation with their financial
Okay.
plans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, shoot.
So go ahead and email me all that information. I'll make sure I put it in the notes.
Okay.
Okay. So
Good.
And what's the
everybody
name?
have that.
What's the name of the business? Shout out the business.
I know,
Oh,
right? We are Envision
there you go.
Enterprises, Team
Okay.
Envision.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Wonderful.
yeah.
Cool.
So everybody, thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate it. Please remember to like, share, subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're on Facebook, come on over and join us on YouTube and subscribe there. You know, we always look forward to building our community
Yep.
and, you know, making this black couple thing, giving strength to having black couples come on and just, you know, growing and growing our community. So
Yep. Yep.
anything else? Oh, please remember you can always buy my book at lovepartconnection.com.
Yep.
And at some point we're going to start, you know, bringing on some what our coaching, online coaching, but we're still
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
So
We
Yep.
thank
need
you
you
guys for
guys.
huh?
We need
I'm
you
sorry.
guys. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
hey, we're trying slowly
Yes.
we're
but surely.
trying.
Yes.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you guys again in our next episode.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Thank you.